Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to this week's episode of Certified Forgotten. We are your horror podcast that talks about films with 10 or fewer reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. Sometimes, a lot of the time, that is the case. But every now and then, my co founder, my business partner, my friend and I, Matt Donato, will have a conversation about something else, something contemporary, something current, something inciting action and making you feel like we're going to talk about some films you've got to rush out and see right now. And the impetus for this, because as Donato said, kind of in our pre podcast discussion, we're a couple of business boys. We're used to looking at quarterly numbers reports. We're used to thinking about, what the trends are going to be in the quarter ahead. And we are at the point where it's April 2026. We have 3 months of horror movies in the books. And fucking yet, even 3 months into the year, I'm willing to bet there's some movies folks have missed out on. What do you think?
I don't know how you could possibly miss out when there are so few movies being released every week, day, hour, whatever you want to, whatever time frame you want to use.
Yes, there's a lot of stuff that is released. And even in this exercise, when we're going through and compiling the list of films we're going to talk about today, it is difficult to stay on top of the things that are going direct to streaming versus limited theatrical versus full wide release theatrical versus used to be an NFT and is now playing in 3 theaters in the United States. We'll get to that one in just a second. So for this week's episode, we're going to do things a little different. We're going to do a quarterly earnings call, and we're going to say, here are the certified forgotten, the overlooked titles for Q1 2026 that we would put good money on showing up on our website in a year or two. Somebody's going to pitch us on these movies and say not enough people watch them, and we're going to say, you know what? You're fucking right. You should write about it. So in the spirit of a quarterly earnings call, I'm going to put Matt Donato on the microphone, and he's going to run us through some of our distressed assets we're going to talk about today.
I am in hell. As much as I was like, this is a good bit. It's a good gimmick. We're little business boys. Now I'm in hell because I did this all.
You shouldn't have let me do it. So let's immediately pivot back to film criticism, please.
I will gladly do that. Actually, okay, I'm going to start a little off the beaten path here because I do want to have a conversation about Undertone with you because we have not yet. I saw it at Sundance and you saw it after. I know you didn't like it because I already know your thoughts on this. You've posted them. But I'm going to be honest. I thought this was going to be more in your wheelhouse. It's experimental. It's playing in so many like cool out of bounds ideas of audio horror and what that means. So I don't know. You being the more academic of us two, I thought you might appreciate it more, but it turns out I'm the one that likes it.
Yeah.
And you're the one that I don't want to, I'll never use, I don't think hate is the word, but you really don't like this movie.
I don't hate a lot of films. I don't hate Undertone. That said, part of it is we talk about on the podcast that I do believe hype is a thing, and every film critic likes to preen and puff their chest feathers and say, I am not a victim to hype. I come in and treat every movie. If it's the first time I've ever seen a film on God's green earth, everybody wouldn't shut up about this film coming off the festival circuit. They were talking about it like it was God's gift to sound design. And of course, that's going to get in your head a little bit. And you're going to be even if you aren't prejudging the film, you're going to be looking for that moment that every other film critic is alluding to, the moment where it becomes something special. And as you can feel that slipping away, as you can feel the movie unfolding without a moment that you're latching onto that makes you see eye to eye with your fellow critics, that's a tangible thing. That happens. I'm guilty of that. If I were to go back in a couple of years and rewatch it, would I feel differently? Maybe, maybe not. What I will say is this had a lot of things going for it for me because it was my first ever press screening in Philadelphia, the first one that I traveled to a movie theater and watched it. So I was excited to be back in the groove, excited to be back in action as a bona fide film critic. And I saw this in a Dolby theater. So I saw this in the highest quality of sound design, like sound production that you can get out of a movie theater. And what I was left with was the sound design is great. It does some really cool stuff throughout about sort of atmospheric noises and whatnot. But A, the main character is not particularly fleshed out. B, doesn't really use the podcast format in anything other than kind of the barest of frameworks on which to hang some of its scares. And C, I was genuinely frustrated by the fact that it gives itself the opportunity to explore diegetic and non-diegetic sound. It doesn't really do that. Like there are all these scenes where the main character has their noise canceling headphones on and they take them off, and you could play with those two sonic landscapes. Like Chekhov's noise canceling headphones, you think for sure the first time that she takes them off and the sound of the world comes rushing back into her ears, you're like, oh, this liminal state between headphones and no headphones is where the movie's going to really, really sink its teeth in. And that didn't really come into play. So I think there was just a few things that I didn't respond to, even though, yes, on paper, it is slow burn, religious, sound design horror, all the things that I should be into, all the things that I love, all the reasons I love Hagazusa, honestly, is it's like slow burn, religious, sound design horror. This one just was a miss for me. There wasn't enough there for me to be able to move on and appreciate the things the movie was doing right.
Yeah, I liked it. Again, I don't want to oversell this one either because it did very much get that scariest movie you'll ever see hype out of
Yes.
Sundance, and I was not part of that. But I did appreciate how scary noises could be, and I did like the aspect of the noise canceling headphones and how that played into what you're hearing, what you're not hearing, but also what you're seeing, because you're seeing everything but can only hear some things. And I think that is a trick that works very well in the
Yeah.
movie. I just think it's the movie's only trick because that's what it's doing to you for, let's get right back to my complaint. It is 70 something minutes of slow burn, and then all of 5 minutes of the haunted house at the end of it. So I needed a little more shakeups during, I would say, but it did get me there in the end, just in the sense of truly seeing something that isn't very popular outside of a movie like Monolith, which is doing the same exact thing. So like this isn't the first podcast horror movie. It won't be the last either. I think it's also very Pontypool. It's very
Yeah.
hearing about the terrible things but not seeing them. And I think both of those are, well, I shouldn't say Monolith I'm fine on too. So I think it's on par with Monolith, but Pontypool let's not talk about because that's much better.
Pontypool's in a class of its own. I will say my final thought on Undertone is if you are going to watch it, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, it feels like the rare movie that warrants or even may aesthetically improve from watching it on your phone, on your tablet with earbuds in or with headphones in. Because the spatial sound design, when it shows up in the movie, is, I mean, if you're mean, it's the only thing it has. If you're charitable, it's its strongest attribute. I feel like in a weird kind of way, this movie might be detrimental to see in a movie theater in the same way that like screen life films always hit a little bit harder when they're on your laptop because part of it is the experience and the technology that's driving it. So I would be very curious. We don't normally do this on the podcast. Of course, you can always write us at admin@certifiedforgotten.com and share any of your thoughts that you might want. I would love to know if anybody watched this for the first time with earbuds in on their phone, on their tablet, on their laptop, because I think that might actually be the optimal viewing experience. And hopefully, I'll get to have a conversation with somebody about that someday because it does feel like a film that is designed for a new medium, and I'm intrigued as to whether or not other folks will find that to work for them.
So let's move on to a positive for both of us. I think I can speak for both of us here, but we might have even mentioned on the podcast to this point. I think I did a South by recap 2 years ago that had Redux on my list, and I thought it came out last year, and it didn't. And
It feels like it came out last year, doesn't it?
I swear to God, I got a PR email, but that's a story for another day. In any case, it came out this year. It's finally out. It is a McManus Brothers release. It is from the team who did the Block Island Sound, which I am very much a fan of. But Redux is very different. It is lo-fi sci-fi, let's call it. We're doing time travel stuff, or sorry, let's say alternate reality stuff here. And it's a hard sell for me because the idea is everything and the concept is everything in science fiction. So I understand that's where it all stems from, but like most science fiction requires a lot more effects work and a lot more world building where you believe the fantastical stuff that's going on. And Redux is one of those rare instances where it's drilled down to the simplest of formats and it doesn't need a lot of flashy sci-fi high techery,
Hmm.
and somehow the McManus brothers like make this movie feel so authentic and genuine in what it's doing. And the concept is rather brilliant. It is a mother who's daughter was murdered, and she goes back and kills the murderer in every timeline she can find. That's it. That's the movie. Or
Yep.
sorry, that's the movie on paper. Where it goes from there, I am in love with because it sounds so dark and bleak, and it is a very punchy in your gut movie. But there is a road trip element at some point to this that feels very different and very lovely and nice. And it's just you're going on this journey of grief and sorrow and revenge, and all of a sudden you're on this other journey of like rebuilding and reconnecting and what family means, and then you're right back to like murdering this dude over and over again. So I there's a lot to pull off. The tone swings around, but for me it might be one of the like the most controlled and commanded movies I will watch from a filmmaker this year.
Yeah, it's a good one. It is full credit, of course, goes to Michaela McManus, who plays the main character in the film. I compared her in my review that I wrote for Certified Forgotten to Linda Hamilton from the original Terminator movies, and I think that's an apt comparison. She carries herself with a gravitas and a world weariness that I think is appropriate for the character and what you've seen her come through. There's a couple of things I really like about the film. Obviously, the multiverse angle is we're tired of multiverses. We're exhausted. We've seen them in a million different ways, and I do think that Redux finds the ability to do something new and fresh with it. Maybe it's a dead cat bounce of a film concept, or maybe it's just so good that it barrels its way back into relevancy. Either way, I think this multiverse story stands out and deserves to stand out, even among all the different ones that we're seeing. I also think, to your point, the it's very simple, it's very lo-fi, but I actually really like the action in it because it's one of those things where you're going to have, a very simple gunfight, a chase sequence, something like that is a car chase. That stuff happens and they don't have the ability to do a lot of it. So they make every second of screen time or all of the anticipation building up to the actual action as well. It's I sometimes get shit from people because even though I enjoy action movies, I find most of them start at 11 and then try and go to 13, and you're just like there isn't, you've already gone broken the scale. There's not a lot of escalation you can do to. I think that something like Redux is a perfect example of a film that understands that action is music and you have fast sections and slow sections, and people think like the big action set piece, it's like actually the couple of minutes you spend building up to whether or not the character pulls the trigger once can be just as exciting and suspenseful and engaging as, The Night Comes for Us or any other action movie that is just wall to wall set pieces and special effects. So I think it does a really good job. I would say that this is an action movie I think about sometimes, even though it's not an action movie. But I think about the action in this movie more often than I think about action movies that I've seen in the last year, and I think that's to its credit.
Yeah, 100%. That is high on my list of it was going to be one of my favorite movies of last year. And then I had to move it to this year because again, I sort of got it came out last year, but it didn't. Maybe it did in a parallel universe. Like
Isn't
the
it
movie.
great that you could just get to like have your blurbs written like 2 years before, and then you just wait for the actual release dates to hit? It's
It's
good stuff.
it's a weird feeling. It's sometimes it just when you're sitting there just waiting for that movie you love to get released, and you're like,
Hmm.
how am I still the only person that's seen this so far? Obviously, that is
Correct.
quote unquote only a small few, but still, that I think that's the strangest feeling. Yes, because you just want to champion something like Redux, and you're just grappling with when it's going to get released, and sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's 2 years, like sometimes it's like 5 or 6, and that's the craziest part. Just to sit there and be like, how does a movie that is so dope, like Tiger's Not Afraid, didn't go 5 or 6, but it felt like it was
Right.
so much longer than it deserved to sit around for. So, yeah,
And
that's
the worst part about all of that is that you need to have these totally asinine discussions with Rob Hunter about whether a movie's the year that it was
he's
released at a
so
festival counts
wrong.
for the best.
He
He
is
is
so
so
wrong.
wrong. There is an entire industry built around release dates, Rob. What the hell are you? If you're listening to this, Rob, I love you, but this idea that the first time you see a movie is the year of its release, regardless of circumstances or context, you're just wrong, man. I hate to put it like that.
If you are writing a best movies of the year list, and the year is 2025, you don't get to put festival movies in there that aren't released yet. Get out of
Right.
here. Nobody
Right.
gives a shit about that. No, no. Best movie of the year is full theatrical release
Correct.
to its audience.
Yep.
Rob,
Donato and I
Robert,
don't always agree on things. This is the thing we agree the most on. The most on.
fucking Robert.
Robert.
So I from here I'm gonna pivot and I'm gonna use one of my I've seen it and you haven't yet,
Oh yeah.
but it very much is Addison Hyman's Touch Me because this is another one that I saw Sundance 2 years ago. So not even this past Sundance, the Sundance prior. And it is so many things. Um Most importantly, it is bloody and beautiful and so raw and emotional. And if you haven't seen Addison's prior works, one I love is Hypochondriac. First and foremost, like that is it is a movie about a hypochondriac that becomes a Donnie Darko situation. All this stuff, and he knows really well how to balance the genuine horror of existence with super flashy genre elements, let's say. And Touch Me is it's hard, but it's again going to veer more sci-fi. It's going to be more a lot of influence of Japanese pink cinema, a lot of influence from, just to be honest, like this is a live action hentai movie. It is what it is. Legitimately, it means so much, like watching this movie at times, because like there's therapy elements, there is self-assurance elements, there is what you will put up with in scenarios just when you don't love yourself enough elements. And then there's big goopy alien scenes. And then there's decapitations. And then there's black and white. And then there's super, super stylistic production design that again is like cherry blossom trees and all this other stuff. Like it's the movie you're never expecting. And I think because of that, I will forever like cherish Touch Me in that way. Also, just amazing performances from Olivia Taylor Dudley and Lou Taylor Pucci.
Mm.
Dudley is the lead here, and Pucci is basically her like can't quit abusive ex, and he's again an alien with tentacles, and the sex is great. Everything else is not.
I feel like it probably says something about you that you continue to love films like Touch Me in Spring, which is basically just like normal person, weird sex monster. I feel like we are sort of homing in on what your happily ever after would look like, Matthew.
To be fair, Spring is beautiful in an actual romantic way. Touch Me is beautiful in a fucking go at it yourself and figure your shit out kind of way. They are definitely, like, you are correct,
Hmm.
but I don't want to make that comparison where they both are the same movie. Like
Sure.
they're both beautiful for different reasons. One is just
Well, since I haven't seen it, I'm going to read. I'm going to contribute by reading a little bit from your Daily Dead review because I like the way that you sort of end this. Touch Me is a dazzler. It's graphic and graceful. Hyman's intimate bleeding heart genre hybrid plays by its own rules. Ambitions are grand and sure. Some tonal craziness gets jumbled in the fold, but Touch Me acknowledges where threads get a bit thin. Glancing through this review, and you should definitely check it out. Coming off of the Sundance 2025 Film Festival is where you reviewed this. Just watching you struggle to describe this on paper is delightful. Like it is one of those things where if a film critic can't succinctly describe a movie, that should be a movie that you should have on your radar, like full stop. If it doesn't fit into a box and a film critic has to use a bunch of different genre comparisons, you mentioned here, talking about the Japanese pink films, you mentioned the black and white hardcore 80s creature effects. I don't know. If you're anything like me, a movie that is too much will always be more interesting than one that's not enough.
yeah, maximalism, but again, maximalism with a point. And maximalism that just it makes you warm and fuzzy for all the reasons you don't think about. And yeah, like it's just again, it's just one of those things that lets every single line of dialogue just hang and make you think about it from every angle. It's
Mm,
who is right, who is wrong, and you start, to hear some of your words in the words, and you go, ah, fuck.
yeah. Okay. All right. That's available for streaming now, correct? Or for rental or
It
something?
was theatrical. I don't know if it's streaming at the second, but it had its release. It went limited, I know for sure, and I think it'll probably be streaming sooner than later.
All right. So keep an eye out for that one. I'm going to elongate my sentence for 2 seconds and say it's available for pre-order right now on all streaming platforms. So not out quite yet, but pre-order and available soon. Doesn't give an exact date. Yeah, not an exact date, but be available soon.
And continuing, I'm going to bring you back in the fold, and you got super excited because we talked about this movie already,
Yes, we
but
did.
It is now not in NFT form and is more readily available. So, Mr. Monagle, what can the people finally watch in non NFT form?
Well, some people somewhere can finally watch Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Chime. This is a film that has been in a few select theaters in normal select theater places, Los Angeles and New York, has been playing. I was so confused to the point you were making about movies showing up and you being like, wait, didn't this already release? I started seeing reviews from our friends, our mutuals, that were like, Chime now playing. I was like, this came out 2 years. Like, I rented the NFT. I remember that. But like, our good friend Tellerico at Roger Ebert had run a review, and a few other folks were publishing reviews. And I was like, is this getting a release? It was getting a limited release. It doesn't have any designs on home video anytime soon. However, it can now count because it had a domestic theatrical release. It can now count towards my list of my favorite horror films of 2026. And so it will be. We talked about this, gosh, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago on the podcast. We dedicated a full episode to it. You and I both downloaded the really weird video file from a Japanese NFT site that we had to use Google Translate in order to understand. It was a risky click, but it all worked out because, my gosh, I love this film. It is so reminiscent of Kurosawa's early stuff. It is a isolation, urban despair, technology, pre-apocalyptic slow burn. And again, things we talked about in the podcast episode. I feel like Kurosawa over the last few years has really started to get his due as one of the horror masters of the 21st century. That he has a way of depicting our social disconnectedness as well as the ways that our society are falling apart, not in big, loud ways, but in quiet, despairing ways. All of his films are fucking amazing. Even the ones that aren't that great are worth watching and are like super interesting visually. And I think Chime is going to be something that when people can sink their teeth into, they're going to have a good time. It's almost a it's almost a short. It's like 45 minutes. It's not quite feature length. It's kind of in that gray area between a feature length film and a short film, which is great because you can put it on and then, still have plenty of time to get on with your day, finish your book, catch your bus, whatever you're going to do. But if it ends up being somewhere you can see, I recommend you check it out because there aren't a lot of Matt Monagle movies that are more to my pleasing than a film like Chime.
Yeah, very Mads to me. I really liked the Shutter
Mhm.
original Mads and the way it puts you at the beginning of an apocalypse before everything goes full chaos when the movies usually like to take place, and it's the citywide outbreak, it's all the disaster, it's all this, and Chime very much is it's the beginning of something terrible,
Yeah.
and you do just get to see it unfold. And you know, do I wish it was a full movie so we actually could see the next steps of this terribleness? Yeah, of course. But what we do see, it's what you said. It's the more intimate version of a doomsday. It's a more intimate version of a
Yeah.
terrible event, and that's almost worse because you see how it affects people on a small scale versus the ease of, all right, it's just mass hysteria. I don't really know any of these people. I don't know what's going on. There's more weight to a movie when it actually just picks a few people and focuses on, well, something awful's happening outside, but like, let's really see what's going on inside.
Yeah, and I this is a mode that I hope more filmmakers gravitate towards right now, because I feel like this week Exit 8 is going to release, which is an adaptation of a Japanese horror game. It is about a guy who gets trapped in a subway that never ends, and he needs to find the eighth exit. It is a very interesting film. I'm sure we'll talk about it in some capacity, probably in an upcoming subscriber only episode of the podcast. So make sure you don't miss that. Subscribe, plug, subscribe to Certified Forgotten for at least $10 a month, and you will get our monthly wrap up of films that we liked. But I bring up Exit 8 because Exit 8 is, oh my gosh, liminal horror is so hot right now. Backrooms, the trailer for Backrooms, the Chiwetel film dropped this week too, and everybody wants these horror stories that take place in these spaces that exist and don't exist simultaneously, and it's steeped in creepy pasta and it's steeped in video games, and it's like it's of the moment. But I don't feel like that's actually where most people feel like they're living right now. I feel like most people feel like they're living in this pre-apocalyptic moment, the chime of it all, where you recognize that you sort of feel like events are in play, that are going to bring about the worst thing you can imagine, but you can't really stop it and you can't really articulate it. Like every day we get on and read the news, and like it seems like we're headed towards something really bad, but there's no brakes on the bus and we don't have any way of doing it. Those are two types of narratives that I think kind of capture the societal disconnect that we feel, the liminal state horror and the pre-apocalypse horror. And as more people rush into the liminal state stuff, as more people look at Severance and think I could do that and create their own horror stories of that, I really hope we don't lose sight of pre-apocalypse, because you're right, Mads is a good example of a film that gets that right. Obviously Chime gets that right, but like it is those days, minutes, hours before the collapse that I think are where we feel the most tension and anxiety and pain and uncertainty. Um, and I hope that filmmakers think about that story, think about Before the Fall, not just, another apocalypse film that takes place a decade after society has collapsed and there's a bunch of survivors running around. We're in that pre-fall moment, either metaphorically or literally. And I want to live there a little bit on screen too.
Yeah. Same. I'm gonna sneak another one in here.
Do it.
I can't forget if we talked about it on some type of recap podcast that we did for Uncertified, but I really was surprised that I liked a Shudder release called Honey Bunch, and to the point where I kind of know the PR rep, and even they were kind of like, I don't know if you're gonna like this, but here's the screener. Like you're gonna get a screener after the first reactions. You don't get to be part of the first reactions. So I came in kind of like a little hesitant, but I'm gonna say like of the spring ilk of horror and romance intersecting and it actually meaning something. I think Honey Bunch actually is one of the better representations we do of a lovely genre film, and it's made by two couples, which is super interesting. I got a little ambitious and I didn't look up how to pronounce one of the names beforehand, and now I'm regretting it. But it is Madeline Sims Fewer and Dusty Mancinelli. They are the directors, and they are a couple, and then it stars Grace Glowicki and Ben Petrie of Dead Lover, who are also a couple. So behind the camera and the people who are like writing and telling the story, couple. People on camera, couple. And this is a movie about a couple. Like Ben and Grace are playing what is introduced as partners, and Grace's character unfortunately is suffering, from some type of memory loss, amnesia, whatever you want to call it. So they go to a specialist place to try to cure her and bring her memories back and bring back the Grace that Ben's character still loves, but one that will love him back in a way that used to yada yada. It's not what it seems. There are tricks at play. There is definitely something going on with the institution they go to, but it never it's a movie about gaslighting in ways that is obviously awful, but once you get to the end of it, it's not like there's a terrible motive behind it. Like there is love in this movie, and there is love in every part, and it's about dealing with the messiness, and even at times when you look at someone, they don't seem like the same person because life is messy and sometimes we have highs and lows. It's about getting to the other side and at least trying to, and then like it's a movie about till death do us part. And I don't really want to say much more because
Mhm.
the third act is very much hinging on what you kind of expect is coming at a certain point, but uh, there's a nice little twist. And I don't usually get nice little twist reveals anymore, Like I don't know. I feel like horror movies these days aren't as mysterious and hidden. So I was really struck by that, not only the chemistry between Grace and Ben on camera, because you could just feel them letting their personal stuff like dictate how these characters feel and the messiness that they endure, but also the passion they have for each other. Um, but also I was just really taken by the fact that I got somewhere that definitely when I started the movie I didn't think I was getting to. So for those things, I think Honey Bunch is a nice little little horror date night movie if you want it for the genre fans.
Do you think that this film, and I asked this question as a married man talking to my single friend, do you think this film is going to hit harder if you're in a relationship or harder if you're not in a relationship?
No, 7,000% if you're in, because this is very much the navigation of a relationship that has been going.
Mm.
Um, I mean, I listen to someone not in a relationship. Sure, like there are elements to it that are like, damn, it's kind of cool that like someone would go this far for the other person, shit like that. But the tension, I will say the anger and the frustration in the film, it definitely is stemming from being in a relationship and having to get through certain things that, some relationships don't even survive. So that's I think it hits on both, but I think this is definitely a couples movie. And not a bad way. Like you're not gonna get to
Yeah.
the end of it and be like, oh fuck, we gotta break up. This is the worst. Why are we doing this? Like it's not one of those movies that takes a dark, hard turn and is like, oh, relationships just suck. Like
Well, there you go, kids. There's your new fun TikTok challenge: is watch Honey Bunch as a couple and then discuss it in real time afterwards, and try not to fight. I guess? Question mark. I will.
actually would be dope. That actually
There you
would be
go.
kind of fun.
There you go. Shutter publicists. You can have that one for free. That is from me to you with love. And I think that's it. Does that bring us to the end of this episode?
I'll say try Body Count too. It's another
Okay.
Shutter one, but if y'all are streaming and you have Shutter, give Body Count a try. It is super simple. Two cops go into a house. Their body cams are on. Shit gets weird. It's low budge. Don't think anything special. It's fine for what it's doing, but I don't know. I think like the idea of body cam horror is actually pretty neat, and that goes back to VHS Beyond and Jordan's first
Oh
segment, Stork.
yes.
So like, I think there's so much that can be had with a body cam type horror movie, and I think Body Cam the movie it gets there a little bit.
Okay. Body cam as a new evolution of found footage, and would encourage folks to check that one out as well. It is on Shutter. So there you have it. That is, I lost track. Let's say that's 5 recommendations. I don't even know if we include Undertone, since the verdict was a little split on that. Let's say that's 5 recommendations from us of horror films that are either currently available or soon to be available that you might have missed, even as early as April 2026. You might have missed these films that came out this year. And hey, you should definitely check them out. And you should listen to Undertones or watch Undertones on a pair of earbuds and then let us know what you thought about it, because I still think that'll be an interesting exercise. That brings us to the end of our episode this week. Donato, you did cool things with Perry Nemiroff at WonderCon. You're about to do more cool things at the Overlook Film Festival. So I know some of the folks that listen might be in attendance. Can you talk about where to connect with you online and what your panel is going to be at the upcoming Overlook Film Festival?
Yes, you can follow me online as always at Donatobomb, DonatoBomb. Blue Sky, Instagram, Letterbox. Those are the big ones. And Mr. Monocle's right. I have a red eye flight on Wednesday to get to New Orleans. So Thursday night, I can interview the motherfucking crypt keeper, John Kassir. And like, that's kind of cool. Perry and I are going to do a co-moderation conversation with John, and there's like so much history and legacy there and just so much to dive into, and I don't even know how we're going to cover it all in an hour, which is crazy. Like I've never actually done an hour conversation. Most I've
That's
ever
so long.
done
Yeah.
is like 20. But I don't know, for me my first intro was the secrets of the crypt keeper's mansion, or whatever that kid show was on Saturday morning, when he would it was like Legends of the Hidden Temple but
Yeah.
in a haunted crypt keeper's mansion, and he would make fun of the kids. Like it was so perfect. I rewatched an old episode and he's just like calling kids losers and dorks, and I'm like, this is the best job ever. Just crypt keeper voice making fun of children.
Are you going to take the advice of myself and BJ Colangelo and watch Reefer Madness before you record?
There's no way I can, but
Okay.
I'm gonna get a question in for sure. I'm like, I have a few people in the audience already that I know are going to be in attendance who have like funneled me questions, and we're gonna have a little fun. I'm
Okay.
definitely gonna get some requests in, let's say.
All right. Here's what I will do for you then as your friend. You don't need to watch the full film, but you can YouTube the song Mary Sunshine, which is a duet between John Kassir and Kristen Bell, who's the female lead of Reefer Madness, and it is well worth your time. So if nothing else, watch that. You'll be prepared. She smokes weed and becomes a sexaholic. You're gonna have a great time with it. I promise, I promise.
Perfect.
As for myself, you can follow me just on Blue Sky. It is Monocle at bsky.social. I suppose you can follow me on Instagram. I don't remember my Instagram. It's like MR Monocle off the top of my head. I'm kind of active there sometimes. I'm trying to prop up and support and encourage a couple of the local businesses in my Philadelphia community. So I mostly am on there to engage with them and to hype up the events and things they have doing. More importantly, you can visit certifiedforgotten.com. You can visit certifiedforgotten.com/newsletter to sign up for our weekly newsletter. And that will give you a rundown of new film reviews that we've published. This week, just myself. I will have reviews up for Exit 8, as well as Hunting Matthew Nichols, the rare film that I've seen, The Man to Know Hasn't. Fuck yeah. And so you should definitely go there, sign up for the newsletter. You will get all of our weekly updates delivered right to your inbox, and you'll get a little bit of bonus film criticism from me to boot. I think you'll appreciate it. Of course, if you like what you've heard, go to certifiedforgotten.com, sign up and subscribe. We've got tiers as low as $5 a month, and that money, I mean, we just did our taxes. I can tell you with absolute fucking certainty, every dollar that you spend goes to our contributors because we lost all of the other money. Every other penny that we spent outside of our contributor funds came from us. So if you want to be part of the longest running indie horror publication, I'm going to try that on for size and see if anybody ever corrects me. Privately film critic owned film publication, then you should definitely support Certified Forgotten. Donato, do you want to help spread my lies? Do you think that sounds right? Right? We're the longest running privately owned, writer owned horror
Yeah.
publication in
Why
existence.
not? Let's see how quickly people jump down our throats.
Yeah, it's been 6 years. Why not? We'll do it that way. That's all. We'll see you next week.